We love autumn. Yum. Hi, I'm Lou, and this is Lily Rowe, who's a little bit sleepy. Happy Mabon, or Autumn Equinox. The wheel has turned, the leaves are starting to turn their golden hues and slowly falling from the canopy. The hedgerows are bursting full of nuts and berries for us to collect, and squirrels too, and autumn seems to be upon us. So to celebrate the season, we thought we'd share a little story with you. This one is from Greek legend, and it's a classic, and this is our version of it. Gather good and close, my friends, gather around the fire, for who knows how this tale will end, who knows what will transpire. Long, long ago, before the time of men, there lived Persephone up in Mount Olympus with her father Zeus and her mother Demeter. Now, Demeter was the goddess of nature and the land, and she was a very nurturing mother, and she cared for Persephone just as well as she cared for the land. She nurtured her and watched her grow and develop. Now, one of Persephone's most favourite things to do was to go and pick flowers along with all the nymphs out in the meadow, and she used to play there and gather flowers. Over the years, she grew in beauty to become a young, beautiful maiden goddess. And Hades, the god of the underworld, took quite a liking to her. He would watch her from the underworld, playing in the meadows with the flower nymphs. And Hades approached Zeus, her father, but also king of the gods, and asked for Persephone to be the queen of the underworld so that she would stay with him. And Zeus saw no problem with that, so he agreed. Didn't think to consult her mother, Demeter, just, went ahead straight away and did it. And so one day, when Persephone was out in the meadows gathering flowers, she saw one particularly fine Narcissus. Not Narcissus. So one day, when she was out in the meadow gathering flowers, she saw a particularly fine daffodil flower, a narcissus, and it was growing right in the corner of the meadow. And so over she went to pull at it, but it seemed to be very deeply rooted, this daffodil. It wasn't coming away very easily like all the other flowers. And so she pulled and she pulled and she pulled until eventually, as she pulled, the roots of the flower came up, but created this vast cavern down deep into the underworld, and up came Hades through the chasm. He was riding a magnificent black horse that was snorting and galloping out of the hole, and all of the flower nymphs in the meadow were scared and they ran away as Hades grabbed hold of Persephone, all apart from one nymph who desperately tried to hang on to Persephone's ankle and was trying to keep her safe, but alas, Hades was too strong, and he took Persephone in his arms onto the horse and galloped back down to the underworld, taking her gently in his arms. Later that day, Demeter wondered what had happened to Persephone, because she didn't come home for dinner like she would normally. And so she went out to look for her, and she went down to the flower meadow, and none of the nymphs were around. But then she heard sobbing. Someone was crying. And she went right to the edge of the flower meadow, and she found this one nymph sobbing her heart out. Whatever's wrong, whatever's happened? And the flower nymph was crying and could not answer her. She just looked at her with great sadness in her eyes, and Demeter knew that something had happened to Persephone. Demeter was grief-stricken, and she came down to earth to search far and wide for Persephone, but alas, she could not find her. In her sorrow, the land began to change. The leaves on the trees started to yellow and shake in the wind. The meadows' flowers started to wither, and seeds started to fall. She was so sad that eventually she spoke with Zeus, king of the gods. He must be able to do something. And Zeus said, yes, why, Persephone, our daughter, has gone to be queen of the underworld. Isn't that brilliant? Now, Demeter didn't think it was brilliant. In fact, she got quite angry. You must return my daughter to me. I cannot live without her. But Zeus refused. He'd made a bargain with Hades. And this enraged Demeter further. And the land grew cold and barren and desolate. And a great icy wind was released. The lakes froze over and turned into ice, and great white snowflakes fell upon the land, and everyone was cold and shivering. And Zeus thought, oh my, we can't have this. What's to be done? And so he sent Hermes, the messenger of the gods, down to the underworld to talk with Hades to see if he would release Persephone back to her mother. And so Hermes travelled down to the underworld, where he saw Persephone sitting upon her throne along with Hades. And Persephone had grown to love Hades, for Hades had treated her well and with compassion, and doted on her, and was a dutiful and well-meaning, loving husband. However, she did miss her mother, of course, and she did miss the meadows up above, for in the underworld there is no flower meadows, unfortunately. And so there was a little bit of sadness in her. And so Hermes explained the situation to Hades and said that Zeus commanded that Persephone be returned above and reunite with her mother. Now Hades was wise enough to know that he could not refuse a direct order from Zeus. And so he prepared to sadly say farewell to his beloved Persephone. And he offered her a pomegranate as a farewell gift. Now, this was a bit of a sneaky move by Hades, for the fates had weaved it that anyone who should eat or drink any food in the underworld, they would never be able to leave. And Hades knew this, so he was being a little bit sneaky. Now, Persephone was also quite wise, and her mother had warned her of tricks like this, but she didn't want to seem rude. You know, Hades had been so good to her over the last time they spent together, and so instead she decided just to eat the seeds of the pomegranate, because she felt, well, that's not really proper food, I'm sure that would be all right. And she ate 6 of the seeds of the pomegranate. And with that, Hades was elated. Ha! She'd eaten the food, and therefore she would have to stay with him forever. And Hermes thought, uh-oh, I'm going to be in for it. They always shoot the messenger, don't they? So he fled back up to Mount Olympus to tell Zeus the news. And so back on Mount Olympus, Zeus and Demeter were waiting eagerly to welcome back Persephone, but Hermes turned up on his own. And I don't want to go into details, but there was a little bit of, colourful language going on there. And Zeus was like enraged that Hades had dared be sneaky and play a little trick. But he couldn't undo the fates kind of say so either about, eating food of the underworld. And so he decided to be fair. And Hades could keep Persephone for the same number of months as the seeds that she ate. And so she ate 6 of those seeds. So for 6 months of the year, Persephone has to stay below ground in the underworld. But then for the rest of the year, the other 6 months, she can come back above ground and be reunited with her mother Demeter, and together they nurture and enliven the land. And so that is why at this time of year, at Autumn Equinox, the leaves begin to change and start to fall, and the fruits begin to ripen, and the days start becoming darker and colder. It's because today is when Hades claims Persephone for his 6 months and takes her below ground to the underworld until spring equinox, when she'll be returned once more. Do you have a favourite way of celebrating the season? Do let us know in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this video, do give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel so you can join us again in the woods next time. And thanks for watching. Persephone divides her time between the earth and the underworld just fine. Her mother's grief turns the leaves, and autumn takes hold to the trees.